Supreme Court has ruled to uphold the ban, uphold the law, right? So there was a big challenge that whether this was unconstitutional, whether it violated free speech. Right now, the Supreme Court has decided that this law can stand. And of course, now it's going to be a question of what goes on once the president-elect takes office, because the Biden administration reportedly may not enforce the ban. But we do know that the Supreme Court has ruled that the ban is okay to be upheld.
So the Supreme Court not jumping in here to save the day for TikTok. The small business owners and content creators won't be happy to hear this, because the platform they've used to grow a following, to earn money potentially, will now be banned. Sunday, as you mentioned, President Biden said he won't intervene to get in the way of this. But President-elect Trump has seen the benefit of TikTok. He's credited the platform with helping him get into the White House. So what does this mean in the very short term for all of these people on the platform who don't know what will happen come Sunday and Monday?
Okay, so a couple of things. In the most immediate short term, the law says that come Sunday, Apple, Google, these app stores, they cannot have the app in their app stores for those in the U.S. So if you don't have TikTok on your phone, you're not going to be able to download it come Sunday. Now, TikTok is reportedly considering not just, okay, we'll still allow people who are using the app to have access to it. They are reportedly considering completely shutting down access for all users. So that's sort of the first question of what might come Sunday for those of us that do have the app on our phones. Then you take this out a little bit further. There's the question of, would President-elect Trump sign an executive order that would roll back this law? There's a lot of legal questions for those that are far more smart in that world than me to answer of whether that would be possible. But the broader picture is people who use this for their business, for their brand. I've talked to many of them. They're pretty worried because TikTok versus Instagram, you have different audiences there.
Yeah, President Trump being sworn in noon Monday. So if this could be part of his first few official acts, it's still unfolding. Kelly O'Grady, thank you so much. Let's also bring in CBS News legal contributor Caroline Polisi. Tell us what you know about the Supreme Court's decision so far and what this means for people who truly do rely on the app right now.
Yeah, well, it literally just dropped. I would say from what I've skimmed through, it's not surprising. The First Amendment arguments here on behalf of TikTok really weren't that strong. You know, we're calling it the TikTok ban, but really what this was a bipartisan supported legislation that Congress passed about corporate structures, really, to preserve national security. And it relates to ByteDance, the parent company that owns TikTok. And essentially, the argument was that the ban would violate free speech implications. But, you know, the First Amendment can take a back seat to other certain issues. And in this case, it's national security. The concern is that China may be stealing our data, spying on us, you know, all the things that we've heard. You know, you just reported what could happen. Trump, I mean, this bill was spurred because in Trump's first term, he wanted to sign an executive order getting rid of TikTok. And so that raised sort of, you know, Congress's eyebrows and got this issue on the table. So this idea that Trump could potentially sign an executive order and sort of wave a magic wand is not legally accurate, right? So you can't just sign an executive order and make congressional legislation go away. It could be a sort of Band-Aid. You know, he could say, you know, we're extending implementation of the law for 30 to 60 days while we give ByteDance the chance to divest the TikTok company to an American-owned company, which is what the law says. Essentially, TikTok would have to sell to an American-owned company. There's been a lot of sort of whisperings about potentially Elon Musk stepping in to buy the company, but ByteDance says that's pure fiction. They clearly don't want to sell. So, you know, there's a lot of legal implications here. As noted, he could just direct his Justice Department, Trump, not to enforce the ban. But, you know, if I'm the general counsel at Apple or Google that's you know, selling this app, I wouldn't, you know, be too comfortable continuing to market and sell and provide TikTok to users, even in the face of Trump saying he wouldn't move forward with implementing, enforcing it.
I mean, it's fascinating for you to lay out the potential options for the incoming President-elect Trump, because all of a sudden his inauguration Monday carries with it two significant developments from the hostage release deal between Israel and Hamas. And now Trump has a decision to make on what to do for TikTok. I understand that in addition to Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, and other tech billionaires, that the CEO of TikTok's U.S. subsidiary is expected to be at inauguration. So before we let you go, help me understand the options that Trump has, either in what he can do or what he can encourage his Republican majorities in Congress to do. For example, there's been a suggestion to propose an additional delay somehow of the bill. What options are on the table? Yeah,
and I would note the CEO is not only invited to the inauguration, but apparently he will be seated very prominently close to sort of prime time, which I think tells you a lot.
That's a very significant detail.
It is. And, Trump has been very outspoken in wanting to save TikTok. He sees it as a place where people like him. He's been very outspoken about this. He, submitted a brief in the Supreme Court case when he was not even a party to it, saying basically he's the only person that has sort of the political power, mandate, and business acumen to deal with the issue. But, it's not that easy, unfortunately. I think the easiest way out, instead of it's kind of hard to overturn legislation. He would have to really push a bipartisan effort, and it takes time. It's not again, you can't wave a magic wand. I think the easier path would be to try to find an extension of implementation of the ban and try to find a buyer. But again, that is contingent on, for whatever reason, it seems pretty clear ByteDance doesn't want to sell to an American buyer, even though they stand to make billions of dollars on this entity, and you have to ask yourself why.
At the very least, all the people who use this app are likely freaking out at the moment, because the TikTok they've used for so long is effectively coming to an end. Caroline Polisi, we really appreciate your insight. Thanks so much for joining us. We want to quickly cross over now to CBS News senior White House correspondent Weijia Zhang. Weijia, this decision just handed down by the Supreme Court. What's the latest from the Biden administration?
Well, the Biden administration has not responded directly to the Supreme Court decision. However, Errol, it has issued a statement to make clear that it will not be the Biden administration that is implementing the law that goes into effect on Sunday. Now, as Caroline laid out, this was bipartisan legislation, but to be clear, President Biden signed it, so it is the law of the land. And even though there may be an option to pause on implementing for 90 days, that is an exemption only if there is active conversations and movement in a potential sale. But as Caroline also said, and this is really important, that doesn't exist. ByteDance has made very clear they do not have any intention of selling. So as far as what the White House is saying now, they're saying our position on this has been clear. TikTok should continue to operate, but under American ownership. Again, that doesn't seem like it's happening anytime soon. Goes on to say, given the timing of when it goes into effect over a holiday weekend, a day before inauguration, it will be up to the next administration to implement. So the message from here is, we're on our way out. We're gone. So it's up to President-elect Trump and his team to do something about making sure the law is carried out. Now, it is important to note that the incoming National Security Advisor, Mike Waltz, did have an interview just a few days ago. And during that, he said, we will put measures in place to keep TikTok from going dark. But there aren't that many options that they have on the table right now, Errol. So it will be interesting to see what they might propose. But what actually happens is that at some point they're going to have to implement the law of the land, which is a ban on TikTok in the U.S.
Yeah, and Ouija, help us understand, especially for those who are likely making some content for TikTok right now, why this app was considered so dangerous by Congress when our Facebooks, our X platforms, and others also gather our data, listen to microphones, perhaps watch through our cameras, just as much as any other apps. Why was TikTok specifically seen as such a specific national security threat by DC?
Errol, this is such a critical question, and I really do think that, as we have the conversations about how people use and rely on TikTok for their livelihoods, the question is, at what cost, right? And the reason why this was passed is because lawmakers on both sides of the aisle were really worried that because of the Chinese involvement here, the parent company ByteDance, affiliated with China, that the Chinese government could be receiving data about the millions and millions of Americans who use this platform. That's why it's different, because when you're talking about Meta, when you're talking about X, these are American companies. And so when you have a U.S. adversary that is potentially collecting all this critical data on American citizens, then of course it is a much different story, which is precisely why lawmakers passed this bill to begin with. And I think that, that is the question that national security experts continue to pose, which is, at what cost are you willing to give up your data? But we have seen, and you have reported on, this wave of TikTok users making the decision to download and use a Chinese government-owned app called Red Little Book, I believe. And so they're sort of protesting and saying, it's worth it to us. We have done the risk-benefit assessment, and for us, it is worth it to have another government know whatever they can glean on, what content we choose to look at on TikTok.
Yeah, you're so right about that. There's national security components, tech components, but there's so much emotion felt by its users. They seem very attached to this platform for so many reasons. Ouija Zhang giving us the latest there from the White House. I want to now cross back with CBS News Money Watch correspondent Kelly O'Grady, who is still here with us. For some who may be older, they look at this platform as something that the kids can dance on. But you know full well from your reporting that for many of its users, it's so much more serious than that.
It is. And in fact, I interviewed a family of folks who are from Nashville, and they were living on teacher salaries before they started on TikTok. They started making, family-friendly comedy videos, and they now make a living from this. And so I kind of pressed them. I was like, well, why TikTok versus an Instagram or a Snap or some of these other apps?
Yeah, why is this different?
Exactly. So what they said to me was, look, the editing tools, the creator tools that TikTok offers are far more advanced, far more easy to use than what they've seen on Instagram. They actually edit all of their videos on TikTok. And the other thing is the algorithm. They're able to reach, for some reason, a lot more people. And one of the girls showed me a number of videos. She said, this one, I posted the exact same video on TikTok and then on Instagram. It got over 1 million views on TikTok. And then on Instagram, it only got a couple 100,000. Same content. Video. Yeah, and there were tons of examples of that. And so that's the sort of the crux of it, that people find this really, really beneficial for their income, whether it's full-time or supplemental.
And TikTok also made it very easy for people to sell products, get a commission,
yes.
A whole nother component that Instagram was slower to develop. This is uncharted territory to some extent for the US, but this did happen in India. How might that help us look at what might happen next?
It's a great case study of what could happen. So India saw this ahead of time, and they said, look, we're going to ban this app. This goes back to summer of 2020. And the big benefiter was Instagram. It blew up in the country. So many users flocked to Instagram. And what was interesting to see happen is there was a bifurcation of who succeeded on the platform. So people that already had big names, lots of followers, it was a snowballing effect when they moved over to Instagram. But kind of those smaller creators, more followers than I have, Errol, but those with,
that's a big deal.
1 million and whatnot are still considered small. They really struggled to gain traction in India. And so that's kind of potentially something that could happen if there's no solution when it comes to buyers or delays with the next incoming administration, you could see those smaller businesses, smaller influencers try and get that same traction on these other apps and maybe not succeed as much.
Yeah, and it's a wake-up call that this impacts people's lives, people with middle, low income, some people who are unemployed. They have been relying on this platform and the creativity that it provides. Thank you so much. My thanks to Caroline Kelly-Weger. We will have more continuing coverage on the Supreme Court decision in just a few moments. Thank you. But we do want to include some other major headlines. Fire crews making progress containing those flames in Los Angeles, but there is a new threat residents have to worry about. We're live on the ground with that. Stay right where you are. You're streaming CBS News 24/7.
Is there no room for debate on college campuses anymore? 60 Minutes brings you to the new university that is demanding it.
The stakes are that high.
If our universities are screwed up, and I believe they are, then that will screw up America as a whole quite quickly.
An original documentary from CBS reports.
AI is among the most world-changing technologies ever.
Curing diseases, scientific breakthroughs, making lives better.
They can help us with medical discoveries, scientific discoveries, doing better agriculture, having cures for things like Alzheimer's.
It's also going to really transform the way we work.
The uplifting potential of artificial intelligence is limitless.
It gives you a friend, somebody to chat with 24/7 that is non-judgmental. He makes me feel loved and desired.
And so are its downfalls.
The problem with all this AI is that it's unpredictable and uncontrollable.
The choices we make now will have lasting effects for decades, maybe even centuries.
The ChatGPT revolution, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
I think I asked direct questions. I don't know that they're tough questions per se. What price should Moscow pay for trying to manipulate American voters? Isn't that giving people false hope? That's the role of Face the Nation, to focus on the issues at hand. And that means a civil conversation with perspective.
It was almost like being face to face with the devil.
Women riding bicycles dismembered.
She just vanished.
48 hours reports.
I fought and fought.
911, what is your emergency?
She disappeared off the face of the earth.
Ever think in your wildest dreams someone might want to kill you?
This almost became a game of psychological warfare.
You're caught. You're gonna go down.
Stream 48 hours, 24/7.
I think we're very cute.
Yeah, I think we need to send out a Christmas card like this.
Yeah, let's do that.
Dollar Jill.
If you can't get into the market, it's okay. Renting is fine.
I wonder how Serena is feeling.
That's a really good question. No one's asked me that yet.
You're 70 years old?
70,
yeah.
I'm 21.
We'll see you 7 o'clock sharp.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ, streaming free anywhere you are.
Somebody wants the bag. How do they get the bag?
It's a name that's synonymous with luxury. 60 Minutes goes inside the House of Hermes to hear the history and meet the people who craft elegance one stitch at a time. It's time for 60 Minutes.
Welcome back. With just 3 days to go now until the presidential inauguration, President-elect Donald Trump's pick to run the Department of Homeland Security is answering to lawmakers on Capitol Hill. We're talking about South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem defending her capability to lead key agencies that, keep in mind, will be critical in Trump's mass deportation plan. Listen to this.
The challenges in front of us are extremely significant, and we must secure our borders against illegal trafficking and immigration. We must safeguard our critical infrastructure to make sure that we're protected against cyber attacks, respond to natural disasters, and also terrorism. Border security must remain a top priority. As a nation, we have the right and the responsibility to secure our borders against those who would do us harm.
CBS News political correspondent Caitlin Huey-Burns joins us now from Capitol Hill. Caitlin, Noam is going to play a significant role, not just in the administration, but Trump's sweeping immigration plans. How, in the way she's answered questions, are we getting a sense of how exactly she'll do that?
Yeah, we know immigration is going to be the priority for this incoming administration. And, you know, Errol, this is a massive job. It's a big agency. It not only oversees the border and border security, but also oversees things like natural disasters, oversees FEMA, which we know is a critical agency as well. So a lot of these questions have been focused, as you can imagine, on the border. And what's significant about Noam is she will be the face, for better or for worse, of the administration's immigration policies. Now, Trump has appointed a separate border czar, Tom Homan, to be in charge of the mass deportation plan. Remember, that was a central tenet of his campaign. He wants to implement that starting on day one and has appointed Homan to oversee that. That's not a Senate-confirmed position, which also signals the way in which that position could be controversial. But Noam will essentially assume the face of the immigration policies, which will include the mass deportation policies. You may remember during the first Trump administration, Kristen Nielsen was the Secretary of Homeland Security and was the face of the child separation at the border and received a lot of criticism for that. So this is going to be a big job. Really, this hearing so far, Errol, has been pretty subdued. You actually heard several Democratic lawmakers from northern states like Michigan and New Hampshire asking about securing the northern border, which was interesting. But as you can imagine, Republicans have been laser focused on border security and have really used this hearing also to lay in their criticisms of the current HHS Secretary Mayorkas.
That's right. And previously, Nielsen was effectively fired from her role after the controversy surrounding family separation exploded. So this is a role that comes with challenges. Can you give us a sense of what might happen next week? I know there's more folks lined up.
That's right. We have a couple of cabinet positions confirmed so far for confirmation hearings, but we're also expecting some of these nominees to actually be confirmed by the Senate next week. We know on Monday, for example, Pete Hegseth is expected to have his committee hearing. He's expected to get through that hearing committee process and then go on to the full Senate. And essentially, by next week, we could have some of these nominees confirmed by the full Senate and then, essentially put into action. That kind of goes on par with previous presidents, although Biden at this time was lacking in terms of how many he had confirmed during that first week. Trump has made clear that he wants nominees confirmed as quickly as possible. He has a majority of Republican support in the Senate to try to fast track those nominations, or at least get them through to the confirmation process, the final process. But it's also notable, Errol, that Trump, made a play soon after he was elected to announce his nominees at a really rapid pace. Remember, before Thanksgiving, he had all of his nominees for those cabinet positions and administration positions already announced so that they could start that process. But basically, as you heard in the hearing today, as you've heard all week, these nominees are saying they want to get to work on day one. So look for January 20th on Monday, when the president-elect is inaugurated. We could have some news coming, at least at the committee level, from some of these other nominees. Another person that we're looking to see when he is scheduled, of course, is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. That will be the next kind of controversial pick. Some of these others next week and some of these others that later this week have been pretty non-controversial, Errol.
All right. Monday will be significant. Caitlin Huey-Burns, thank you so much. Make sure you bundle up because it will be chilly there in D.C. as well. Great to chat with you. All right, the decision from the Supreme Court on that TikTok ban, it's going to impact millions of users. We're also talking about business owners and influencers whose livelihoods truly do rely on the platform. Next, we'll speak with a popular content creator about what's at stake. You're streaming CBS News 24/7.
Don't miss true crime anytime you want, anywhere you go with the 48 Hours podcast. Real crimes.
Like a John Grisham novel come to life.
Real lives.
He pointed a gun to me and said, "This is the day you die." And he shot me.
Real justice.
There's some questions that have to be asked and need to be answered.
I'm an innocent man, and I hope the whole world can see it now.
Catch the latest episodes. Listen to 48 Hours on Apple Podcasts.
Okay, so let's just start at the beginning.
Well, let me start with this. What is at stake here?
What is the answer then?
Do you know why?
You want me to just keep going?
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Were there death threats?
How is this possible?
What's wrong with that argument?
Are you saying they lied?
Have you told the government that? Why won't you say the word crisis?
You're not answering my question.
This really
Is that scary?
Does that make sense?
What do you mean?
What does that mean in
Did any of that make
What
sense?
have you learned?
What's your response?
What happened?
Why?
It's time for the CBS News Original 60 Minutes, Sunday on CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus.
Let's do it! Let's go! Let's do this! I can see clearly now that the rain is gone. Superstar approaching, superstar approaching.
Just get your popcorn and get ready.
Come on, Julia. Oh, no. I will if you will. You go, gal. Yeah, boy!
Dollar Jill.
If you can't get into the market, it's okay. Renting is fine.
Box, oh, it's bad. Screw cap, oh, it's bad. It's not true.
We are making a wonderful lemony chicken.
Hot.
That's good.
I wonder what Serena's doing. I wonder how Serena is feeling.
That's a really good question. No one's asked me that yet.
You're 70 years old? 70, yeah. I'm 21.
We'll see you 7 o'clock sharp.
To be moderator of Face the Nation is not an anchor, it's not an actress. You are up here to moderate a conversation. That means bringing the most powerful stakeholders to the table to become better informed.
There is no more room in our city.
New York City is receiving record numbers of migrants.
Today, we're going to have more than 500 adults and children come through that door.
Tensions rise as shelters reach max capacity.
We don't have to take care of them.
CBS Reports goes inside a crisis cities and families are facing as they fight to survive.
The United States still has a glimmer of hope for people to come here.
Fighting for a future. Now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Don't miss true crime anytime you want, anywhere you go with 48 Hours podcasts. Real crimes, real lives, real justice. Listen to 48 Hours podcasts wherever you get your podcasts.
All right, welcome back, friends. We want to return to our top story this morning. The Supreme Court moments ago upheld the TikTok ban, ruling the app can shut down as soon as Sunday if the company's Chinese owner, ByteDance, does not divest. We want to speak to CBS News Supreme Court and legal producer Catherine Cole. She joins me, as you see, from our Washington bureau. Catherine, you're the lucky one among us because you've had the time to read through the ruling and look at the specifics. What's jumping out at you? What are the major takeaways that factored into the justice's decision here?
Yeah, this is a overwhelming victory for the government and a sound defeat for TikTok. What I notice is that the court here has issued a per curiam opinion. That is, they're speaking in one voice, all 9 justices. There are no dissents here. Everyone agrees. This law that Congress passed, ordering divestiture of TikTok's foreign ownership, passes constitutional muster. One thing I do notice is that there are 2 justices who concurred. That is, they joined the opinion here, but they wrote separately to just pull out a couple things that they found interesting. And one of those is Justice Gorsuch, who said, whether this law will succeed, I do not know. But the question we face today is not the law's wisdom, but its constitutionality. So I think what we're seeing, and that that's echoed in the main opinion, which is saying this is Congress's judgment that we're following. We are not saying whether this law is good, bad. It's not our problem. All we're saying is that this does not trigger the kind of First Amendment problems that TikTok pleaded the court to find here. That there's no First Amendment issue that doesn't that.
So then, if you can still hear me, help me understand what that means for the larger picture, as far as you saying that the Supreme Court is deciding it's actually quite narrow, This doesn't have to do with massive freedom of speech issues, as TikTok claims. This just basically says there's no issue constitutionally for us to adjudicate. So then does this just only impact TikTok? Is there no other domino effect to other platforms in any way?
I think you've pulled out something really important here, which is that the court is not trying to issue some sweeping First Amendment social media law opinion, in part because they had only 2 weeks to consider these questions. This has been on a fast track, this entire case, because of the looming deadline. Sunday, January 19th, TikTok goes dark. And so the Supreme Court was rushing to get this out, is issuing, as you said, a relatively narrow opinion cemented on the merits of this particular case. And what that means is that Sunday, January 19th, TikTok will probably go dark. The only way out of it I can see is if the political branches intervene. President Biden has the ability to extend that January 19th deadline by 90 days. There's some talk he might not enforce this law. If Congress wanted to step in the next 2 days, it could, but the judicial system is staying out of it. Barring anything really unexpected, TikTok goes away on Sunday.
A unanimous decision. Catherine, thanks for helping us understand just a bit more in depth how the justices got to this point. We appreciate your time. We now want to speak with someone who says they are a victim of this decision. Content creator Colin Jones is a business owner bracing for the impact. You're the founder and CEO of a jet charter company, Amalfi Jets. I've seen your stuff trending, Colin, so help me understand how this decision impacts you and your company.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, TikTok's been a fantastic platform. I mean, we have 1.9 million followers across it. So, at the end of the day, it's disappointing and it's a big bummer to see it go. But at the end of the day, great content does great on all platforms. So whether that's on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, X, LinkedIn, whatever it is, I mean, we look forward to hopefully seeing our 1.9 million followers kind of transition over those platforms as well.
So what do you plan to do? From what I've, for viewers that don't know, this is based on what I've seen. You record some of your customers' conversations. They're calling about how to take private jets and private aircraft, and that the behavior is quite outrageous in many cases, and that's what gets you engagement. But help me understand how TikTok helped you show a different side of your business, or even your own comedic side, and how you now plan to leverage that elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, the private aviation industry is very antiquated. So being able to kind of give everyone like a under the hood look has been really rewarding. And I mean, at the end of the day, we've got plenty of great new customers from TikTok, but at the end of the day, we encourage them to, continue following along on our content on the other platforms, whether it be even on the Amalfi Jets app or our upcoming podcast. And again, at the end of the day, we want people to keep hearing our story. We want to keep putting out great content. We want to keep showing the kind of, under the look insight into the industry. So whether that's on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, or anything else, I mean, we look forward to seeing these people as well.
You sound like you're taking the news pretty well. It probably has a lot to do with your constant customer service role in helping people. But there is a difference as far as accessibility and reach and algorithms. Even if you go completely to Instagram or even try YouTube, which has its own algorithm, there are challenges ahead for you still, right?
Correct. Yeah, I mean, the algorithm on the other platforms is definitely not the same as TikTok, but at the end of the day, I think this encourages content creators to like to diversify. At the end of the day, if TikTok were to be banned, well, that's, a huge bummer. Great content can do well on other platforms as well. So I think encouraging your loyal fan base to, keep following along on other platforms and just to kind of diversify across the board. But while it, will be disappointing, I mean, obviously it's not a kind of end game type of situation, but I mean, I think this shows the resilience of content creators and of businesses alike.
And then if you think about just in our own lifetimes, there are people that remember MySpace, there are people that remember Vine. These were the top social media platforms for their moment. What, since you're taking this so well, advice would you give to the TikTokers freaking out right now? And I've seen them cry on the app in anticipation of this ruling. So what do you say to those people who are really feeling quite emotionally vulnerable?
Yeah, I mean, again, I feel for them. We feel for them. I know it's obviously going to affect everyone in a completely different way. But at the end of the day, if you have great content can perform on other platforms. I loved Vine as a kid. And I love TikTok. So being able to transition into other platforms and, keep following along with people you like is really important. People get attached to individuals, kind of the authenticity that you provide on these platforms. So whether that's on TikTok or on Instagram, I mean, again, like people become attached to that, and I think they'll kind of follow that wherever that is. So I would encourage these content creators to not be discouraged, keep making your content, and encourage your followers to find you on the other platforms as well.
Really useful advice. Colin, thanks so much for your time. I can't wait until I make enough money to give you a phone call. If and when I do, don't record it.
Definitely.
Colin, thanks so much joining us from
Thank you,
LA.
Rob. Good one.
Appreciate you. All right, California wildfires, they've made progress in getting that massive Eaton fire to more than 50% contained now. I'm so thankful to be able to report that. Unfortunately, though, there's a new threat in the LA area, landslides. National Guard checkpoints are now set up to keep people out of evacuation zones where many dangers remain. CBS News correspondent Tom Hansen joins us live from Altadena, that neighborhood completely devastated. Tom, you're in an area that will just be ages before it can be rebuilt. Folks still trying to see what's left of their properties. What have you seen so far?